Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Just because I found the thought of it humorous, I'll be referring to my wife as wifey a lot from now on. Also, I know I seem like I'm posting too fast. But remember, this originally started around 10 days ago, and I've not wasted time in getting the divorce started. I also apologize for the length of this post as I could not keep it short. It really didn't take me long to find and hire a divorce lawyer. And she's mean. Yes, my lawyer is a woman. And she seems pretty good at her job. She asked me a couple of times if I was really sure I wanted to do this. But once I explained my full story to her and showed some evidence, she agreed with me when I said I wanted to start ASAP. So she got the ball rolling. Oh, this divorce is going to cost me. But I don't care. I'll rebuild my savings later as a free man. I didn't even want to rent the house I'm currently living in anyway. Wifey pushed for that. I'd have been happy staying in our old apartment we used to share until we could have actually afforded to buy a house together instead. But that's obviously never happening. I'll be paying a lot less for an apartment once we separate. Before coming home, Wifey spent some time at a cheap motel when she bailed her mother out of jail, and she even threatened to call police on me when I went to see her there. I changed the locks with my landlord's permission while Wifey was still away, and sent her a text saying I'd done so. But I guess she'd not bothered to look since she never responded. So upon returning home, she ended up pounding on the door and screaming at me to let her in. I just watched her through the doorbell cam and let her keep it up for a while before she finally got on her phone to call me. I was already walking home from having had dinner with my best friend when she called, and I pointed out the text she'd not bothered to read. When I got home to let her in, she was puffy, cheeked, teary-eyed, and red with a bit of cat butt face. I had a new key ready for her and told her if she gave a copy to her mother again, I'd be notifying our landlord, as they were already very angry. She'd given her mother a key to begin with. Not sure what the landlord could have done, but it was enough to make Wifey comply for the moment. Plus, I'm not going to be living here much longer anyway. My mother-in-law still believes she did absolutely nothing wrong and is playing victim to Wifey every chance she gets. She's not allowed over anymore, for obvious reasons, and I've been repeatedly called a monster by her and Wifey. I've never been more glad that mother-in-law has no friends, because then she'd be telling them all her convoluted version of the story to paint me as a villain. I just know it. She was told how much my key collection is roughly worth and what kind of felony charges she could be facing, though my collection was returned fully intact. So she may get the charges lessened. I'd like to hope she gets a decent punishment at least. But I'm not really counting on the system to throw the book at a manipulator like her. As I said in my previous post, Wifey also paid her mother's bail and what she owed to the pawn shop with money out of our joint bank account, and then smugly told me that she wouldn't be putting the money back. Basically, that was a terrible power move and her only way to try and put all the cost on me. I've since removed everything I had in that account and stopped all future payments to it so she can't spend my money too. And I've changed my passwords to pretty much everything. Wifey flipped the hell out on me for it when she finally checked the account a couple days ago, because that meant that what she paid for Mill's bail and reimbursing the pawn shop was all in her money only. And now there was no more access to my funds to supplement her own with. I just ignored her tantrum and went into the home office to watch anime on my computer. She banged on the door for a while, demanding I talk to her. I just stayed quiet and put on headphones. Wifey has repeatedly demanded I drop all charges against her mother, and even said that if I really loved her, I would not only stop all this, I'd cover the cost too. When I kept refusing, she moved into the spare bedroom. She tried to kick me out of the master bedroom first. But I made it clear I'm not giving up the master bedroom when she's the one at fault. She tried to start taking my stuff out, but I just blocked her while pointing my finger at her face and said no, like I was talking to a dog. She ended up crying and saying I was demeaning her, but I didn't care. Then for some more deception on her part, she admitted to me out of pure spite that until this mess had started, she'd been planning on letting her mother come live with us full-time soon because of the state of her hoarder house. She boasted that she was just going to move her in while I was at work. I told her we were supposed to be equal partners before this all happened. And I was sick of her unilateral decision-making. And as long as I'm paying 50s of the lease, her mother will not be living here. And if she tried, I'd throw all her mother's stuff out immediately. Wifey looked like she wanted to explode and stormed off to have a drink and a loud phone call with her mother in the kitchen. I just started removing her stuff from the master bedroom and left it in the other room for her. I put a new lock on the door to the master bedroom too. I had Wifey served at her job, which she said really embarrassed her in front of her colleagues, and she flipped out on me again when she got home. Apparently, she didn't take my threats of divorce seriously until those papers were actually in her hands. She said I couldn't do this, but I told her I was done. She made it more than clear where she stands. I told her I learned a rather interesting phrase online. When people show you who they really are, believe them. And she's clearly shown me who she really is. And it's not the woman I fell in love with. That woman disappeared and got replaced with an entitled mommy's girl who refuses to act her age right after we got married. Which makes it pretty obvious she did that intentionally. At this point, I don't think she ever loved me, just my wallet. I can't stay married to a woman who conned me into marrying her. Then she started screaming at me she wasn't a gold digger. So I asked her if she'd have been inclined to stay married to me if I'd done the all same things to her. She tried to deny it at first, then looked around like she was trying to find a better answer. Then she just gaslit to deflect as usual. But I had none of it. I told her right then and there that I'm not renewing the lease on the house with her because I don't want to live with a petulant woman. Child I can't trust. And if she wants to keep the house, she can go ahead and start a new lease to move her mother in once I'm gone. Finally, that's when the real waterworks started. She said I was destroying our family. And I said, what family? And pointed out how we don't have kids. And her mother is more important to her than me. We have no family. Then I just walked away. She loudly cried in the living room for hours, but I ignored her. Now she's giving me the hardcore silent treatment and won't look me in the eyes. I'm actually enjoying it, which just seems to make her angrier. As an added bonus, I warned my current landlord about wifey wanting to move her mother in. I gave him all the details I had about Mile, the state of her hoarder house, and how much of a deceptive mommy's girl wifey is. And warned him that if he let my mother-in-law live in any property he owns, she would turn it into an utter disaster. He thanked me for telling him, and is now not going to let wifey renew the lease on her own if she tries. He'll be advertising the property soon. Wifey has no idea yet and likely would have only just barely been able to afford the house with her mother's help anyway. One more thing. Yesterday, someone warned me to take my name off the joint bank account entirely, so I would not be on the hook for any overdraft. I took that to heart and went to the bank to get it done. Only took a few minutes to do it, and the bank is 10 minutes away by car. All good now. I've been working from home lately, so I had the time. All statements from the account were already printed and given to my lawyer too, so I can wash my hands of it. This was many years ago when I was trying to break into the jazz scene as a singer in a new city I had moved to. I had shared some recordings of mine with a super talented musician and band leader who lived there, and based on that, he invited me to come out to one of their shows and sit in on a few songs. It was a great opportunity for me to perform in front of an audience of jazz lovers and also to make music and connect with several really wonderful players. His guidelines were simple. Just pick 3 jazz standards that I thought I would shine on, and he and his band would back me on whatever I chose. I spent the week considering which songs would demonstrate my skill and also carry the most emotional impact, and I practiced them every day. That Friday night, I took extra time to try to look good, but I was still pretty nervous and self-conscious when I got to the crowded club. I literally knew nobody in this town. In a stroke of luck, someone left a little 2-seat able just as the band began, and I snagged it. During the break after the first set, the band leader came over to chat with me. He was a really nice guy and generous with his talents. He didn't need to let me sit in with his band. As a matter of fact, many people wouldn't have done it. I was really grateful to have met him and felt hopeful about the contacts I would make through him, but more importantly, I thought we might end up being friends. He told me that after the break, they would play a few songs, and then he would invite me up. He then went off to mingle with all the other people who wanted to talk to him. As soon as he got up, a woman slid into the seat that he had just vacated. She was tall and pretty, and she said that she heard that the band leader had invited me to sit in, that she was also a singer, and she wanted to welcome me to town. "We chick singers have to stick together," she said with a beautiful smile. Could this night get any better? Here I was making another friend already. "What songs are you going to sing?" We chatted a bit, and I told her what I had chosen and why. She was really charming. As the band took the stage, she excused herself to go back to the group of friends she was there with. She flashed that beautiful smile and told me with a wink that she was sure we'd see each other again real soon. The band finished the first song of the second set, and then the band leader called up the other woman that I had just met. It was odd that she hadn't mentioned she was going to sing too, but I was glad I'd get a chance to hear her. I then sat there, utterly shocked and dumbfounded, as she proceeded to sing all three of the songs that I had prepared. I looked over and saw her friends looking back and forth between her and me, laughing. I was so stunned. Mainly because never, in 1,000 years, would it occur to me to do something so crappy to another person, let alone a fellow musician. She literally came over to me and acted friendly to find out what songs I was singing so she could pull that stunt. Welcome to your new town. I was so hurt and humiliated. She was, at this point, singing the third song directly to me to the great amusement of her friends. The band leader knew that something was up, but he had no idea what, as I hadn't told him what songs I would do. My brain was racing, trying to come up with a way to deal with the situation, and then it hit me. She was pretty good, but she wasn't that good. She was a little formulaic, a bit unoriginal. She was depending on her looks and presence, her tricks she had learned in her voice lessons. She was technique, heavy, and soul, lacking. In other words, she was baffling them with nonsense, and I knew what I had to do. Her last song ended and she left the stage to generous applause from the audience and cheers from her table of friends. The band leader called me up. I handed him my lead sheets and whispered to him, "She stole my songs. Please trust me on this. Let me do the same songs." Fortunately, he got it instantly and nodded with a little smile. And I sang the living hell out of those songs. I put every ounce of my training, but also my emotions, my angst, my fears, my longing, my loneliness, my joy. I wasn't even aware of the room, but for a moment between songs, I glanced out to see her sitting there with her mouth hanging open and her friends now sitting still and silent. The room exploded when I finished, and I got a standing ovation. Someone actually shouted out, "That's how you do it." I honestly felt kind of bad for her, but I think she learned something that night. The band leader came up to me later and told me that he had wanted to teach her a lesson in humility for a long time, and thanked me for letting him be a part of it. I ended up living in that town for 5 years and became good friends with the band leader and many other musicians in town. I never got close with that other singer, but she never tried to pull something like that with me again, and I think she never tried it with anyone else, either. I still think it was one of my best performances ever. I was in the military for a few years, and being in the military, you deal with quite a few. How do I say this nicely? Special supervisors. Well, this story is about the special wife of a special supervisor, not my supervisor. It was a Tuesday, my day off as I had worked a weekend shift, and I went to the store on base to buy a new Xbox, one that had just come out. Obviously, I couldn't buy just the Xbox. I also had to get another controller, headset, and the game I wanted to play. As I was looking through the electronics department, I overheard a conversation between Karen and store employee. Karen to store employees. "Come here now." Store employee. "How can I help you, ma'am?" Karen. "I want this TV and the best sound system to go with it." Store employee. "Well, based off of XYZ, I would recommend the Samsung sound system. It's the top of the line for its price." Karen. "How much will it be, total?" Store employee. "It would be around $1,800, not including tax, $1,699 for the TV, $100 for the sound system." Karen. "I am not paying that much for this. Give me a discount." Store employee. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I kind of give you a discount on these items." Karen. "Do you know who I am?" "I'm Karen, wife of Karen's husband, who is the commander of XX Group. Give me a discount, or else my husband will have your boss take away your minimum wage job." At this point, I was getting pretty mad. I hate when military spouses try to use their spouse's rank to get what they want, and the way this lady was talking to the store employee was deplorable. I walked closer to them, acting like I was looking at the TVs that were next to them. Karen was so busy screaming at this guy, she didn't notice me. Karen was wailing for the store employee's manager. The store employee tried to explain he is not able to give discounts on these items and his manager is in a meeting and won't be able to come out to talk with her until he's done. Karen. "I don't care where your manager is. I want him right now out here." Store employee. "Ma'am, I need you to be civil, or else I will have to ask you to leave." Karen. "I will not be civil. You're being a crook and trying to steal money from people by selling overpriced items." For those of you who don't know, military stores are generally the same price, if not cheaper, than other stores. And it's all untaxed. Karen continued to make a scene, threatening the store employee with actions against his job. Store employee. "Ma'am, I need you to leave." Store employee proceeds to walk towards Karen's cart. Karen. "Get off my cart, you minimum wage ingrate." Karen proceeds to raise her purse towards store employee in a swinging motion. I step in and grab her purse before she has a chance to hit him. Karen, who the hell do you think you are? Get the hell off me. I am Karen, wife of... Me. Yeah, I know who you are. The whole store knows who you are because of how loud you're being. You were about to assault this employee. He asked you to leave. Now get out of here before I call security forces on you for attempting to assault this employee. Karen, I will have my husband take his job and I will make sure you get demoted and lose your pay. Me. Good luck with that. You don't even know who I am. Now leave. Karen then proceeds to take her cart and ram it into my side, pinning my ankle under the cart. She then proceeded to hit me with her purse because I was unable to move out of the way because my ankle was pinned under her cart. At this point, I lost my mind and the store employee has had enough of Karen. I push the cart off me, walk over to her and grab her arm, my hand under her armpit. The store employee grabs her other arm, and we proceed to drag her out of the store. As we are dragging her out, she is kicking everything in her reach, knocking stuff off the shelves. How the manager didn't hear any of this, I have no clue. Karen, I'm calling my husband. You two are in a lot of trouble. Me, I'll be here shopping for the next 20 minutes. I then walk back inside. Store employee proceeds to thank me profusely and helps me pick out the right stuff for my Xbox. He even gives me an employee discount on the Xbox, which is the best he could do without the manager there. As I walk out of the store 20 minutes later, I hear it. Karen, there he is. Karen and Karen's husband storm over to me. Karen's husband, who are you? What is your rank? What squadron are you with? Me, I am rank X. I'm with the XX squadron. Karen's husband, who the hell do you think you are assaulting my wife? I'm going to have you demoted, your pay pulled, and I'm calling the security forces to have you thrown in jail. I will have you court-martial for this. Me, with all due respect, sir, your wife tried to assault a store employee and she assaulted me. She's lucky I'm not calling the security forces to charge her with assault. Karen's husband, Karen, call the security forces now. Security forces show up. Karen's husband tells them that I assaulted his wife and he wants me arrested and thrown in jail pending action. At this point, the store employee notices what's happening outside and walks out. He then explains to the security forces what happened in the store, and the security forces ask if there is video footage. Sure is. He takes them back to the audio room, purposefully taking them through the carnage that Karen caused and shows them the tapes. The security forces walk back out. SF, sorry sir, but the store employee and this gentleman told checks out. Your wife assaulted them and destroyed store merchandise. Karen's husband to me, I'm calling your commander and I'm going to tell him everything. I'm going to make sure he knows how you talk to me and disrespect an officer. I will personally ensure that you get an Article 15, mysterious voice. No, he will not. Karen's husband turns around and sees the base commander standing there with his entourage. Apparently, the base commander was the one in the meeting with the store manager. They were discussing a future influx of personnel due to a new unit being added to the base. He was about to walk out of the store when he heard the commotion. He stood there for a good 45 minutes to an hour listening to what was happening before he made his move. Then he says to Karen's husband, I want you in my office in 30 minutes, in your dress uniform. When Karen's husband and Karen walk off, base commander turns to me and says, I'm sorry. I'll make sure to inform your commander about what happened. Karen's husband was removed from his position as XX group commander for his and his wife's conduct. Apparently, he had done other things in the recent past that also put him in hot water. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Him and his wife were reassigned to a different base. The last I heard is that he was not allowed back into a leadership position and was stripped 2 ranks. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Man, you won't believe the absolute insanity that went down at the airport today. So, there I am, just minding my own business, waiting for my flight at gate 17, right? Got my headphones on, vibing to some tunes, and suddenly this woman storms in like she owns the place. She's got that classic Karen look, you know? The let me speak to the manager haircut and everything. And she's dragging this massive carry on that's probably bigger than my first apartment. I'm thinking, lady, did you pack your whole house in there? So I'm lounging in one of those uncomfortable airport chairs, and it's the usual drill, people jostling around, kids screaming, but hey, it's the airport. Suddenly, Karen eyeballs the seat next to me. Now, there are plenty of empty seats around, but nope, she wants the one next to me. She shoves her bag in the overhead bin like she's playing a game of airport Tetris and then plops herself down next to me. I shoot her a half smile, trying to be polite and all. But Karen, oh man, she was on a whole different level of entitlement. She starts extending her seat back like she's about to recline into a nap, and I'm like, hold up, lady. There's a person here. My legs are practically sandwiched between her seat and mine. I politely tap her on the shoulder and say, excuse me, mind not crushing my legs? And here comes the moment of glory. Karen gives me this look like I'm the one who just insulted her whole family. She huffs and puffs and then, without any warning, grabs her coffee and throws it right in my face. I'm standing there, soaked in hot coffee, feeling like a character in a bad sitcom. The whole airport goes silent for a second, and I swear I heard someone gasp. The audacity of this woman, I tell you. But here's the plot twist. A couple of security guards, or as I like to call them, the airport heroes, witness the whole thing. They come rushing over, and Karen's face goes from entitled to horrified real quick. The guards look at me, dripping coffee like a drowned rat, and then at Karen, who's trying to conjure up some fake tears. One of them says, ma'am, you're going to have to come with us. And just like that, Karen is escorted away, probably to the airport detention center or wherever they stash people like her. The whole ordeal was surreal. I felt like I was in one of those viral videos you see on the internet, but this was my life, and my dignity was soaked in lukewarm coffee. Now, I've had my fair share of encounters with entitled people, but this one takes the cake. I mean, who throws coffee at someone over a damn seat on a plane? It's like the world has gone mad. As the guards lead her away, Karen is still trying to argue her case, saying something about how I was rude to her first. I'm just standing there, shaking my head, wondering if she's living in the same reality as the rest of us. The best part, though, is when the guards tell her she might face charges for assault over a seat on a plane. I'm not a legal expert, but even I know that's not going to end well for her. Anyway, after the whole debacle, the airport staff was surprisingly nice about it. They offered me a new shirt from one of the gift shops and upgraded my seat to first class on the next available flight. I guess the universe decided to balance things out a bit. As I'm sitting there in my comfy new seat, sipping on some complimentary champagne, I can't help but think about how absurd the whole situation was. I mean, who would have thought that a casual day at the airport would turn into a headline-worthy story? So, morale of the story. If you ever find yourself at an airport, keep an eye out for flying coffee cups and entitled Karens. And maybe, just maybe, consider investing in a poncho for that extra layer of protection. You never know when you might become the star of an impromptu airport drama. I worked for a large computer assembly plant in the western United States in the late 1990s. I was the lead tech for the value-added reseller. When we were able to reach a zero-miss service level agreement time, the muslat we were promised a pay increase and a team party. I managed to lead my team to this level and maintained it for 3 months. No other lead or site manager was able to reach it, let alone maintain it for 3 months. I had 5 techs to handle trouble calls for 1,500 employees. I asked the Karen, Jeff, when we were going to get our raises and party. He only said soon and then said if you do not maintain it for another 3 months, you will lose it. That was not the incentive I was promised when I took the job, so I complained to the home office. Jeff called me into his office and threatened to have me demoted if I went over his head again. The company had an open-door policy that contained a zero retaliation clause. I again contacted the home office and was told Jeff was given the funds, $500, and a budget increase to cover $6.50 per hour. $1.50 for the on-site lead and $1 per hour per tech for raises to our pay the first month we hit the muslat goal. Now I'm just a bit irked. So I confronted Jeff with the report from the home office. I also reminded him of the no retaliation policy. He did not know that the home office told me the amounts of funds allotted. He then asked me who I thought I was going over his head. I'm the lead for this site and I have a responsibility to my techs for their rewards for their commitments and extra effort, I said. He shrieked, "You will mind your place or find another job." So about 2 weeks went by and we finally got our party. 5 pizzas at $10 each and a pre-made cake from a local grocery store that said good job on it at $30. I got a 15 cents per hour raise and each tech received 10 cents per hour. We had been promised $1, 50 cents, and $1 per hour. Do the math, the party cost $80 and the techs and I got 65 cents per hour raises. When I asked about the discrepancy, Jeff said the party funds were cut to $100. and he was only allowed a $1 per hour raise to share with the team. I was working on contacting the home office again when he called me into his office to terminate me at the site and told me to report to the home office for relocation on Monday. When I got to the home office, I was handed termination papers for the company. They, the personnel officer, and Jeff were there to process me out. I read the form reason for leaving very carefully and notice I could send it to the corporate headquarters, out of state, if I so elected. The address was printed on the form. They tried to stop me from doing that by saying you must give it to Jeff for processing. I told them what was written on the form, and I elected to send it to headquarters and walked out of the office. I sent my papers the next day, registered to company headquarters the next day. I learned that 2 weeks after I sent my papers into the company headquarters, with all the above information on it, that they, Jeff and the personal officer, were let go. Apparently, they were doing the same thing with 4 other sites and pocketing the differences. This is not the end of the story, read on. I landed a job at a startup software company that lasted 4.5 years until the dot-com boom went bust. 18 months into my new job, I had to expand the company network into 2 other buildings. I contacted a well-known local network equipment provider for prices and availability, along with 2 other vendors. Each of the vendors visited the facility and provided quotes that were fairly close in price, but had delivery times longer than I'd hoped. The well-known company, however, was a different case. I spoke to the senior sales representative, who told me he would have the sales representative that handled the brand I wanted contact me to make arrangements for a visit to my office. The sales representative said they could be there the next day to determine placement and capacity so they could provide a quote. A receptionist let me know the network equipment guys were there. I grabbed the keys for the buildings and headed to the lobby. When I got there, I got a sick feeling when I saw Jeff. He was the representative for the network gear I wanted. He greeted me like I was a long-lost friend. I held my cool and greeted him in the most professional manner I could muster. I got through this and received a quote which was higher than usual. I had done business with this reseller before and was pleased with their results. However, when I got the breakdown of the quote, I noticed the prices quoted with other resellers was 15 higher than the others, and the labor cost was about 10 higher. I informed the local company that I was not selecting them for the business. When the senior sales manager asked why I gave him the reason, I shared the pricing info and the history behind Jeff. He was shocked, as these were not the numbers Jeff had shown him for the quote. I told him I could not trust Jeff because he was just as dishonest as ever. This cost them a large chunk of business, as I had already awarded the business to one of the other vendors. I did not see or hear about Jeff until 6 years later. It is now 6 years later, and I'm in a Fortune 500 company setting up and maintaining a data center, SEEs, and network equipment. We need to replace some aging servers, and we had representatives from all the brands coming into the office. Yes, indeed, there was Jeff as the representative for a well-known brand of servers. He again greeted me as a long-lost friend. I greeted him with a simple hello. He tried to engage me in conversation, but I politely excused myself as I had some high-priority maintenance operations that needed my attention. Later that afternoon, my manager asked me if I knew the sales representative as he had mentioned it to my manager. I said yes, I know him and his reputation. "Oh, he seems very nice and eager to please us," my manager said. I asked if I could speak honestly about him, Jeff. He said he wanted me to be honest. I gave him all the details of the encounters and behaviors. I told him not to trust what he says, check the equipment we get, the cost of the items, and to get it in writing. Well, the first invoice arrived for the equipment we needed, and the price was higher than quoted. When my management challenged the cost and delivery periods as not what was agreed to, Jeff's boss was embarrassed and angry at the bait switch Jeff pulled. It turned out he was adding unnecessary items to what we asked for as forgotten necessary parts. These items were not only unnecessary, but used and sold to us as new. Long story, I know, but the end result is Jeff was terminated for misrepresenting the cost, brought up on fraud charges for changing signed invoices, and criminal charges of embezzlement. Years ago, when flip phones were the hot thing to own, I worked in a factory making paper. 6 people in each shift, constant watching the machine process in case of wrinkles, tears, or sometimes fire. Paper dust in the air had the habit of falling on fast-moving parts of the machines, and presto, almost instant fire. We usually several small fires every year, but nothing we couldn't handle. We had all worked there 10 years or more, so the trusts were high that we did our work, and our floor manager, John too, never had to direct us to do something until one really special day. Something to know about the factory: it was big, really big. So north of it were a workshop with mechanics ready to help us and the other companies in the same building. East of us were loading bay and ramps for trucks. South were another company that laminated and printed paper. West of us were an area rented out short time. Sometimes a mess hall for showing products, and other times shop and warehouse for sport equipment. Everything under the same roof. This is where the problem began. After one of the worst fires we had, I were on vacation, while my coworkers tried to keep the fire as small as possible until the firemen arrived. 3 people ended up with smoke inhalation damage, and 2 of them were okay after a few days. Paul, on the other hand, got lifelong damage. He could still work, but when a company repaired our floor, they used epoxy sealing of cracks, and Paul could suddenly not breathe. Team leader drove him to hospital, and after inhaling Bricanyl, he could breathe again. We now knew how badly damaged his lungs were, and any strong chemical could kill him. I had years of experience working with strong chemicals, so it never bothered me, something that would come into play later. Months after this, we changed work schedule, and our shift only worked weekends. Sweet deal, with extra pay. Only hassle were the burners that would dry the paper. They could sometimes be a pain to fire up, as the safe, nature-friendly LPG had problems to start in cold weather. No problems. While we waited for those to work, you could start the rest of the machines that were driven by electricity. Do you all remember the warehouse west of us that sometimes got rented out? Well, for some unknown reason, pressure, perhaps their ventilation pipe, were directly over the panels we used to control our machine. Sometimes we could smell leather of jackets being sold next to us. One summer they sold strawberries there, and after work, we all went there and filled our cars. Those strawberries were dirt cheap. One Saturday, someone had the bright idea to just rent the place for the weekend and spray paint their big lawnmower. We felt the fumes right away. You guessed it, big rush to the hospital with Paul again, and I had a nice talk with the guy. At this time, we were part of the European Union, and as I had worked with chemicals, I knew the papers you had to sign, the people you had to talk to, and the documentation you had to bring with the chemicals just to take the chemicals inside a factory. He had none of that. We talked with the company that owned the factory, and they promised to never let this happen again. That promise lasted 4 months. When I arrived one morning, I saw that the chimney on the factory had no smoke. Odd, I thought, as some of the earlier guys usually fire up the burners right away as they could be tricky. After changing clothes and ready to open the door to the workplace, I felt it. Nauseating, strong chemical fumes, enough to melt wallpaper. I took a big breath, held it, and rushed to the coffee room. That was soundproof and had rubber insulation at the door, but inside I still could feel the fumes. Half of the guys were there drinking coffee. The rest of the guys had taken Paul to the hospital again. It was really bad this time. Everything was shut down as nobody could work with fumes like that. They had opened up every door and window they could, but it would take hours before any work could be done. They have talked to a new guy renting the west area, and he had apparently spent the whole night spray painting combined harvester, and all the fumes had gone directly to us. Now we come to the malicious compliance part, finally. While we are sitting there drinking coffee, chatting, and waiting for the fumes to go away, in comes the floor manager. I have never seen John that angry, and while he never said so, I assume he got a call from the CEO that ripped him a new one, as the numbers on the computer said we all were working and produced 0 paper for an hour. John must have felt the fumes, but still chewed us all out, even after we explained about the fate of Paul. He was adamant that it wasn't that bad, and every minute the machines does not run is costing the company money. So I stood up and said to the others, "You two, stay, and I go with John to start up the burners." He followed me out, while I casually chatted with him, trying to look so unbothered of the fumes that I could. We had several panels to start, so I slowly walked to the first one. I felt the fumes, but I could handle strong chemical fumes, as I had done before. It seemed like the burners were on my side this day, and they absolutely refused to start. Even when they struggle, they usually get the hint about what I want them to do in 10 or 15 minutes, but this day they were extra obstinate. When we got to panel number 2, John looked a little green in the face, but as he wanted us to work in the fumes, let us do that. Same problem with the burner again, and I looked at my watch. We'd been in the fumes over 30 minutes now. Even I started to feel dizzy and nauseous by now. Not that you could see it on my face. I looked happy as normal while working on starting the machines. When we came to the third and last machine, John gave up. He grew white in the face and said with a low voice, "Perhaps we could wait a while until the fumes cleared up. Whatever you say," I said with a grin. John never yelled at us again, and I had a warm feeling when I think about that day. Fallout. On Monday, the mud really hit the fan and safety, and the place suddenly became priority number one. We had many visits from state departments. Sometimes in suits and other times in white lab coats, measuring this and that. Several machines had to be rebuilt with extra added security features. Work accidents went from 5 a year to just 1, or numbers like that. I'm guessing here. It had massive effect, and it probably cost a pretty penny to fix. Paul, however, never got really well again, but he retired early and got a hefty compensation, not only the pay he would have received for the years. He should have been working until pension, but also damages, both from the company, but also from a special pot of cash the union had for moments like this. Not that it can compensate for lifelong asthma and inability to run more than a minute. Sorry for the long story with small part of MC, but I wanted to get it off my chest. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.